We're conditioned to believe that solitude is something to be fixed. The woman sitting alone at lunch must be sad. The one walking alone must be waiting for someone. The one without a circle of friends must be missing out. That's the story we're sold, but it's a lie. Solitude is not weakness. It's not loneliness. It's a training ground for strength, if you know how to use it. Being alone forces you to meet the only person you can't escape, yourself. When there's no one to validate you, no one to distract you, no one to applaud or correct you, you find out who you really are. That's uncomfortable for most people, and that's why so many run from it. They fill every silence with noise, every pause with people, every free weekend with events, not because they love all of it, but because they fear the alternative. They fear being with themselves. But if you can't sit with yourself in silence, what exactly are you running from? Solitude makes you confront your own voice, and that voice, it's the most important one you'll ever learn to hear. It teaches you what you want without influence, what you believe without pressure, and who you are without the mask you wear for others. That clarity, it doesn't come from group chats, endless texts, or superficial connections. It comes when the world gets quiet enough for you to actually hear your own thoughts. Strength is built in discomfort. Solitude puts you in that space. It teaches discipline. You get up and work when no one's watching. You set standards for your life without needing applause. You protect your time, your peace, and your mind because no one else will. When you're alone, you become your own protector, your own advocate, your own reminder that you are enough. The truth is, many people cling to friendships not out of joy, but out of fear, fear of missing out, fear of being excluded, fear of appearing unwanted. That fear makes people settle for gossip, for drama, for low-effort company that drains more than it gives. When you remove yourself from that, when you choose solitude over superficiality, you make a statement. Not just to others, but to yourself. You say, I don't need filler. I want substance. Solitude doesn't mean shutting out the world forever. It means you don't let the world define you. It means you're not available to just anyone. You become more selective, more intentional, and far less likely to tolerate what doesn't align with who you're becoming. That's power, quiet power, not the loud, performative kind that needs to be seen, but the kind that shows up in how you move, what you allow, and what you refuse to apologize for. And let's be clear, being surrounded doesn't equal being supported. A crowded room can feel lonelier than an empty one if you're not seen, valued, or understood. But when you build strength in solitude, you no longer seek validation in numbers. You become the kind of woman who doesn't chase connection. She attracts it. There's a popular narrative today that tells women to find their tribe. It's sold like a solution, like once you find this magical group of people who clap when you win and cry when you fall, everything will fall into place. But here's what they don't tell you. A tribe without standards is just noise. A crowd, and being part of a crowd doesn't mean you're seen, respected, or safe. You don't need a tribe, you need standards. Without standards, you'll accept anything just to not be alone. You'll lower your boundaries just to keep the peace. You'll tolerate mediocrity in the name of loyalty. That's not friendship. That's codependency dressed up as connection. And when you confuse the two, you stop asking if people are good for you and start asking if they like you. That's backwards. Real standards aren't about being better than anyone. They're about refusing to betray yourself to fit in. They're about deciding what you will and won't allow in your space, your time, your energy. And they're especially about what kind of energy you allow close to your peace, because it costs you something. Every single time you keep someone around who operates below the line, we glorify loyalty without accountability. We celebrate long friendships even if they're built on gossip, bitterness, and passive aggression. But tenure doesn't equal quality. Just because someone's been around for years doesn't mean they deserve front row access to your life. The question isn't how long they've known you, it's whether they respect who you are now. Standards protect you. They keep you from mistaking connection for compatibility. They remind you that it's not about how many people you can surround yourself with, but about who actually deserves a seat at your table. And if the answer is no one right now, so be it. Silence is better than forced conversation. Space is better than drama. Self-respect is better than performative friendships. Having standards means you stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are. You stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. When you operate with standards, you don't just attract better people. You repel the wrong ones. That's not loss, that's alignment. Some people will call you cold. Some will say you're too picky, too distant, too guarded. That's fine. Let them. People who benefit from your lack of standards will always be uncomfortable when you start using them. But what they think of your boundaries isn't your concern. Your job isn't to make others comfortable with your growth. It's to be honest about what your life needs now, not what it used to settle for. Tribes can be beautiful when they're built on truth, not fear. When they rise to your standards, not when you drop yours to keep them. But the goal isn't to gather people just to say you're not alone. The goal is to build something real, even if it's small. Even if, for a while, it's just you. Because choosing standards over a crowd isn't arrogance. It's self-respect. There's a dangerous idea being passed around that in order to be kind, you have to be accessible. That openness means availability. That compassion requires you to keep your door unlocked for anyone who knocks. It doesn't. Not everyone deserves access to you. That's not cruelty. That's discernment. People mistake presence for value. Just because someone shows up doesn't mean they bring anything worth keeping. Just because they want your time, your energy, your attention, doesn't mean they're entitled to it. Access is not a right, it's a privilege. And a privilege can be earned, maintained, or revoked. You are not obligated to explain why. You don't owe people unlimited access to your mind, your emotions, or your space, especially when they've shown they don't respect it. Too often, women are taught to prioritize harmony over honesty, so they give chance after chance. They keep answering calls they don't want to take. They keep sitting at tables where they don't feel safe. All because they fear being seen as cold, rude, or difficult. But boundaries don't make you difficult. They make you clear. When you don't protect your access points, people will treat you like a public resource, free to use whenever it benefits them. They'll come for your advice, your time, your stability, but disappear when you need reciprocity. You'll find yourself drained, resentful, and confused how it got this far. It got this far because you didn't gatekeep your energy. You didn't ask the hard questions. Do they bring peace or chaos? Do they uplift or drain? Do they show up only when they need something? Being accessible to everyone means being available to harm. Not always in extreme ways, but in subtle, consistent ones. Little cuts to your self-worth, constant erosion of your standards. You'll hear things like you've changed or you're not who you used to be. When you start pulling back, good. You're not supposed to stay accessible to people who refuse to grow with you. Limiting access is not about creating walls. It's about requiring doors, and not everyone gets the key. Some people only show up for the version of you that serves them, the agreeable version, the helper. The one who says yes, when that stops, so do they. That's your signal. The people who are meant to be in your life won't be threatened by your boundaries. They'll respect them, the ones who disappear. Let them. Protecting your access will cost you some people. but it will never cost you your peace. There's a difference between being a good person and being a doormat. You can be kind without being available. You can care deeply and still say, "Not today." You can be generous with your heart and still protect your time, your energy, your mental bandwidth. The goal is not to keep people out. It's to make sure the ones who come in know what it costs to stay. And not everyone is willing to pay that price. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely, but too many people treat them like they're the same thing. Society pushes this message hard. If you're alone, something must be wrong. You must be unwanted, unloved, overlooked, as if solitude is some kind of punishment instead of a personal choice. But being alone is a physical state. Loneliness is an emotional one. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely disconnected. You can be in a room full of laughter and still feel like no one sees you. And you can be by yourself and feel completely whole. There's power in learning to enjoy your own company, real power. Because once you stop relying on constant interaction to validate your worth, you stop tolerating shallow connections just to fill space. You stop saying yes to things you don't want to do, just because silence feels uncomfortable. You stop reaching out to people who only remember you when they're bored. You start asking a better question, not who can I be with right now, but what do I actually need right now? When you become comfortable being alone, your standards get higher. You realize that peace is not something you're willing to trade for presence. Just because someone is around doesn't mean they're bringing anything of value. Sometimes they bring noise. Sometimes they bring confusion. Sometimes they bring the kind of subtle disconnection that feels worse than actual solitude. But when you've built a relationship with yourself, you can spot that faster. You're not desperate for company. You're aware of the cost. There's a certain strength in being able to sit in your own silence, to take yourself out to dinner, to travel alone, to think deeply without distraction. That level of self-trust is rare. It's not loud or attention-seeking. It doesn't need a group chat or a status update. It's steady, it's internal, and most importantly, it's yours. Loneliness isn't cured by proximity. It's cured by connection. And true connection begins with self-awareness. Do you actually enjoy the people you spend time with? Or do they just keep you from facing the quiet? Do you feel energized after they leave, or depleted? These are questions people avoid when they're afraid of being alone. But when you're not afraid of solitude, you ask different things. You get honest. You listen to yourself more. The truth is, some of the most important growth you'll ever experience won't happen in relationships, groups, or conversations. It'll happen in solitude, in the moments when there's no one there to distract you from what you really feel. That's where clarity happens. That's where resilience is built. That's where you stop pretending. And it's in that space where you realize you are not lonely. You are alone, and there's a difference. Being alone doesn't mean you're empty. It means you're full enough that you don't need constant external input to feel okay. You're not seeking completion. You're already whole. You're not waiting to be found. You've already located yourself. There's a stigma around being the woman who walks alone. The one without the group chat, blowing up her phone. The one who goes to dinner solo. The one who spends her weekends in silence instead of surrounded. People look at that and assume something must be wrong. They whisper, they speculate, they project, but being friendless isn't a flaw, it's a phase or a filter, and in many cases it's both. There are seasons in life where everything feels like it's falling away. Relationships shift, people grow apart, you look around and realize the ones who used to know you no longer do. Conversations start to feel forced, time together starts to feel heavy, and eventually people fade. That's not failure. That's life doing its job clearing space. Not everyone who started the journey with you is meant to finish it. and not every connection is meant to survive your evolution. Sometimes, being without friends is simply a phase, a space between chapters. It's not permanent, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's just a moment where you're meant to recalibrate, to unlearn what you tolerated, to examine what you need now, not what you clung to before. These phases are often uncomfortable because they strip away the noise. They leave you exposed to your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own insecurities, but they also create space for clarity. And from that clarity, better people can come if you're willing to wait. Other times, friendlessness functions as a filter, a necessary one, when you start raising your standards, when you stop laughing at jokes that make you uncomfortable, when you stop saying yes just to keep the peace, when you stop showing up for people who don't show up for you, you lose company quickly, and it can feel like rejection, but it's actually redirection. Your silence, your distance, your refusal to play small anymore, it filters out the ones who were only there because you were convenient, compliant, or easy to manage. Being alone after setting boundaries is not a punishment. It's proof that your filter is working. It's how you separate those who love the real you from those who only loved the role you played in their lives. The harder truth is, most people won't stick around when you stop performing for their comfort. That's when the filter kicks in. That's when the crowd thins out, and while that might leave you friendless, for a time, it also protects you from building a life around people who never truly saw you in the first place. The idea that friendship is a constant, that you're supposed to have a tight, knit group from childhood to adulthood, is more fantasy than reality. People change, you change, and sometimes the most mature, self-respecting thing you can do is step away, to pause, to release the pressure to belong just for the sake of not being alone. Because friendship is not about quantity, and it's not about history. It's about energy, alignment, and truth. And those things take time to find after you've stopped settling for less. Be the kind of woman who doesn't need rescuing. Not because you have it all figured out, not because you don't stumble, and not because you never feel fear, but because you've trained yourself to stand back up. You've chosen to become your own safety net instead of waiting for someone else to catch you. That decision, it changes everything. Too many women are taught that strength is optional, that it's admirable but not essential, that it's fine to be independent as long as you're still soft enough to be saved. But here's the truth. Life will not always hand you the right people at the right time. Circumstances won't always bend in your favor. You can't afford to build a life that depends on someone showing up for you more than you show up for yourself. There is nothing wrong with wanting support, wanting love, wanting partnership. But when your survival depends on it, you're in dangerous territory. When you look for someone to fix, fund, or emotionally stabilize you, you give your power away. You teach the world how to treat you by what you tolerate, and if you tolerate being rescued, you'll never learn to lead. The kind of woman who doesn't need rescuing doesn't operate from fear. She's not afraid of being single, being misunderstood, or being alone. She doesn't crumble when things fall apart. She rebuilds, quietly, methodically. She doesn't chase approval or permission. She moves because she trusts her own judgment. She makes decisions with a clear head, not a desperate heart. This woman handles her own business. She pays attention. She watches who drains her. She learns from her mistakes without using them as a reason to shrink. She doesn't hand out access to anyone just because they look the part or say the right things. She's not waiting for someone to pick her. She's busy building a life she's proud of. Rescue culture is subtle. It shows up in the way women are encouraged to find a man who provides, to let someone take care of them, to not be too strong or intimidating. As if softness only has value when it's paired with helplessness. As if strength disqualifies you from being loved. But the kind of woman who doesn't need rescuing understands that true connection only happens when both people stand on their own 2 feet. She's not interested in dependence. She's interested in partnership. This kind of woman doesn't view independence as loneliness. She sees it as preparation, because if she chooses to let someone in, it's not out of lack. It's not because she needs saving. It's because she wants to share what she's already created. There's no desperation in her choices, only clarity, and that kind of clarity can't be faked. It comes from experience, from pain, from building resilience one piece at a time. She doesn't just survive. She leads herself through the fire again and again until she becomes the kind of woman who knows she can handle whatever comes next.